Robert, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate being here.
Great. Would you mind giving our listeners the 411 on who you are and what you bring to the show today?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I, can you tell by my accent, I'm not originally from the US. I came across here in '99 from Scotland, and went straight from Scotland across to Phoenix, and started up my business in 2001, a commercial landscape business and some real estate as well, and grew that business to about 20 million, 400 employees. And then I sold that business in 2016 to a $4 billion company, actually out of Pennsylvania. And I worked for them for a couple of painful years, and then moved into doing business coaching, podcasting, some real estate investments. But during that time, I did do a few small races, 4 Ironman races during my time. So I'll obviously be talking about that mindset, being able to juggle both.
So when you came across, did you know that you wanted to start your own business? Was that always something that you wanted to do, or how did that kind of work?
No, I mean, I think I knew that I was somewhat restricted in Scotland. Scotland's a beautiful place. People are great, beautiful countryside, but I just felt as though life was too short. It's not a great deal of promotion or being successful or having a business. It's just a slightly different mindset over there. So when I came across here on vacation to Scottsdale, Arizona, I just saw how people live there, started asking a lot of questions, and I thought, what am I doing wrong here? So eventually I found out a lot of people had their own businesses, they're all successful, either CEO or executives. And I thought, well, maybe what are some of the things I could do to move myself into a slightly better lifestyle?
So you kind of picked real estate and landscaping. Was that correct? How that worked?
Yeah. Primarily landscaping, commercial landscaping.
Okay, so that's what you started with. That's where it started. That's where you made your first money. So how did you get into the landscaping? How did that work?
Yeah, a little bit of my background was landscaping. I had got my degree back in Scotland. I was in charge of city parks across there. But when I first came across the States, I worked for this large, probably one of the largest landscape companies in the US. And, great company, great experience there. But I just felt as though they weren't necessarily taking care of the clients. So myself and my business partner, we left that company and started up on our own back in 2001, and really just started focusing on our clients and the quality, and just almost changed the game within the Phoenix market, just taking landscaping from what's seen as a fairly dirty business into more of that professional sales type organization. And that's what really grew our company.
So you grew it by going after new customers. Was that how you decided to go after it?
New customers, taking care of clients, networking really well. We were mainly focused on that commercial, high-end, classy type office buildings, hotels, big HOAs.
So you knew what your focus was then. It wasn't like you were going after residential. You knew we wanted to go after commercial. We want to go after high end. And you put together, a program that was designed for that type of client. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We, all of our trucks, everything was geared towards that bigger size properties. And then we built a really tremendous sales organization. A lot of business developers would be part of all the organizations. We do a lot of networking, did a lot of golf tournament sponsorship. We were involved in the Phoenix Open. So yeah, landscaping was almost our basic service, but taking care of the clients and selling to them, selling those extra services was a game changer for us.
Okay, so 16 years in, you become real successful. You said $20 million, which is a lot of revenue to be pumping through. And take me through the moment where you decided maybe this was it, that you wanted to move on and do something different. Was it that somebody came to you and made you an offer, so that was the choice, or were you actively out there trying to sell it? Like what was the decision? Did you wake up one day and just say, you know what, I'm done?
Yeah, good question. I mean, there was constantly people asking for us to sell the company, so that was a nice, you know, nice add-on. But I think the primary thing, I'm part of a group called the Entrepreneurs Organization (EO), and I go to a lot of learning events, go to a lot of speakers. So there was one event in particular, and it was actually July of 2015. People like Vern Harnish and just a lot of great speakers there. And I had during those 3 or 4 days of speakers, I had that light bulb moment, knowing that life is too short. I'm not happy in the situation I'm at. I was starting to have some partnership issues. So I wanted to say, well, how do I take advantage of, what's ahead of me? Because I was more in that growth mode. I wanted to take the company to the next level. My partner was more into lifestyle. He liked his country club memberships. So yeah, I came back from that event and said, hey, we need to find a way to part ways. We either buy each other out, we hold it together long enough to sell the company. What do you want to do?
So you were partners for that whole 16 years. Is that how that worked?
Yep, absolutely. So it's almost like a marriage.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. It really is. There's a lot of give and take in a partnership. That's for sure. Sometimes feels like more give than take.
Yes.
So, so what happened with that conversation? Was it kind of where it was amicable, cool, and it went well, and were you just kind of like, okay, he agreed, let's sell it, or what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, I think he agreed. He recognized we were starting to go sideways a little bit. So we ended up literally within a couple of days. We actually got a phone call from a broker again interested in buying our business. So you know what? After having a conversation with him, he was telling us it was a hot market to sell. We thought, well, let's hold it together long enough to put the company up for sale and hopefully get a buyer for our business. So that's what we did. Is within 2 months of having that conversation, we had our book prepared to sell the business. We put it on the market in, I think, early September 15. And then by middle of December, we probably had 17 people who had visited our company, interested in buying it. And by mid-January, we had 7 people who put offers into our company.
So after you sold it, was there buyer's remorse, or did you celebrate?
It was a lot of hard work selling it. It was definitely, we got a really good price for it, so I was pretty happy. But there was somewhat buyer's remorse because a lot of the promises that they made in terms of not really touching our company was not true. So there was a lot of things that changed within 6 months, and here we are now 5 years later. The company is at probably 50% of the revenue it's at. All my top employees have now left, and that's not why I wanted the company to be left. I wanted that legacy to be there, and so there's definitely some buyer's remorse there.
Yeah, I could see where you've got a lot of people to help you build it, so you make promises to them, and you hope that they're in good hands when you leave, and that's part of the tough process. I could definitely understand that for sure. So after the sale, and I guess sounds like it was one of those deals where they want you to stay on to kind of show them how to run everything for a few years, and it was different then, right? Like it was different than you actually when you owned it, and now you've got somebody looking over your shoulders and asking questions, and then trying to start shaping the company the way they want to shape it, and going against your better judgment, right?
Yeah, I mean, probably 15, 16 years as being an entrepreneur, making your own decisions, making your own mistakes. A lot of those along the way. But yeah, for now, to then have people look at things, a few thousand miles away, just looking at your financials, I almost felt as though they were not trusting us anymore. So yeah, there was a lot of decisions being made about financial decisions that were just didn't sit well with me. And, I tried to grin and bear it as long as I could. But after 2 years, it was just, it was making me miserable. It was making my family miserable because they were hearing me every single day complaining. So I just thought, you know what, I need to move on. Again, it gets back to that whole decision why I moved to the States, is just to improve my lifestyle, improve my attitude. And so I thought, well, again, life is too short. I need to move on to doing something a little bit different that's for me.
When you talk about having 400 employees, I know that's a hot button topic in today's market with the employees. And I still think, my thought is everyone's talking about how tough it is to hire right now. It's always been difficult to hire, always. And I think especially to get good quality employees. And then when you build an organization, it's so important to have communication. Can you talk about what communication meant to your organization of 400 people?
Yeah, I mean, communication is huge. I mean, I even talk about that in my coaching these days, is that, when people get busy, they almost have that excuse, oh, we're too busy to have meetings or communicate. And I almost have the opposite attitude, where I feel as though you have to communicate more, but maybe less, longer meetings, but maybe shorter meetings. So yeah, when you start getting busier and there's a lot more moving parts, you almost have to communicate more frequently. So one of the things that we like to try and do is daily huddles. So just those short, maybe 5, 10 short meetings, minute meetings every single day, and just talk about through some of the wins from the previous day, and then some of the challenges that were facing you that day. So those types of things really just help to communicate at that lower level. And then having those middle senior manager meetings, again, really concise agendas, making sure things are not getting off track, looking at some of your critical numbers during those meetings, I think are really essential to help take your company to the next level.
Yeah, I know when we were growing, what I saw was when we were going from 40 employees to 80 employees, it seemed like there was a big jump on we really had to sit down and say, okay, we're going to have meetings and we're going to be consistent in how we have meetings. And it made a big difference. And I think in this day and age, you have different things like the WhatsApp app or GroupMe. And it's just important to keep everybody connected. And I think that can get lost a lot of times, because I know a lot of people, when you say, oh, I've got 140 employees or 200 employees or 400 employees, a lot of people react like, oh, wow, I don't know how you ever do that. But the truth is you stay connected. And I think that's what's really important, is if you stay connected with your employees and your team, you can steer them in the way that you need them to go. And when things like COVID happen, you can go ahead and be able to communicate all the different restrictions that everything's putting against you, and and what we're going to do and how we're going to react, and all the safety protocols and everything. You've got already a system built in on how to react to things. So it's really important. I think the other thing I wanted to ask you about was kind of like the mindset of the entrepreneur. Like, as you're building this thing, there's got to be different challenges, to where sometimes it seems like everything's great in business, and then there's other times where you're just beat up because things just aren't going right. Whether it's employees, or whether it's just the climate of the economy, or the sales seems like they dried up, or you hit a run where you've got salesmen with excuses, or whatever it may be. Just natural disasters too. I'm sure there's times where it didn't rain in Arizona, and it became tough to figure out how we're going to cut more grass. Like, just like when you get beat up and you feel down as an entrepreneur, but you've done great successful things already, but then there's a point where you're beat up. Like, how do you get through that part where you're successful already, but then there's just other challenges? You're like, man, here we go again.
No, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I felt every single day I was getting beat up, especially in the service industry, where there's constantly problems out in the field, constantly complaints coming in from clients and customers. So it was really tough to keep motivated. And I talk about it in my book, where you have to have that type of northern lights, that shining star, that vision ahead of you, just to really keep you motivated. And what's that thing, maybe in your office or maybe somewhere else on your bathroom mirror, that keeps you motivated every single day? And that was one of the things that kept me going. Was, yeah, I could not only get beat up by my clients, but I'd also get beat up by just driving through the yard and seeing trucks with damage on it. I could see mess around my yard. I could see employees going around not wearing their safety equipment. Yeah, and it could get pretty demoralizing. But what are some of the things that you could really keep your lights on, and where's that shining star? And for me, it was about lifestyle for my family. It was the hope of some exit in the future, and again, that would lead me on to a different path. So yeah, you need to have some type of goal, that northern light keeping you going.
So when you did sell and you stayed on for a little bit, but after that ended, did you know that you wanted to get into coaching, or was it something that, did you take some time for yourself after all the hard work over the last 20 years, or was there, you got right back into something and started something new?
Yeah, that's a contentious subject with my wife. She would have loved to have seen me take some time off, but I just got straight back into it. I think the type of person I am. So I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to get into. I did actually ended up hiring a life coach, just to, when you have 20 years into a business and it suddenly gets unplugged from you, it definitely took me a while just to adjust mentally. But I moved back into the coaching. I talked to a lot of people within my network, um, and tried to figure out, well, what's the way in which I could give back to other business owners and share the experience that I've gained over the last 20 years. Again, I've made a ton of mistakes, but if there's a way in which I can give back to other business owners, um, and again, hopefully get them to a point where they have some type of successful exit, then that would give me great satisfaction. So I did come up with my purpose in life, and it's to make a positive impact on others. So when I looked at that, and I thought, well, coaching seems to match that goal. So yeah, got straight back into the coaching.
And then with the coaching, are you going all over the country doing coaching? Is it now, are you back to in-person coaching? I'd imagine there's a lot of Zoom calls and stuff like that over during the last year and a half, but now are you doing a lot of in-person stuff?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of virtual stuff from probably April to August last year, but since August, I've been pretty much traveling every 2 to 3 weeks, all around the country, up into Canada. Even I have some clients across in Europe and Asia. A lot of the stuff is done virtually, but yeah, I feel as though you get such a better connection doing things in person, and where you're actually meeting with the leadership team and helping coach them through some challenges they have.
And then there was a part where you did do something for yourself too, right? Like the Ironman competitions. Can you talk about that, and kind of how you got into that, and the mindset behind it?
Yeah, I'm a big sports guy. I grew up playing soccer, then jumped into rugby. All fun sports, but I started to get beat up a lot in rugby. Used to come into work every day with a broken nose or something. So I moved into doing some running, some small triathlons, and I'd no concept whatsoever to do an Ironman race, which is the, 2.5 mile swim, 112 bike, and then the marathon, mainly because I'm a terrible swimmer. I mean, I could literally swim one length of the pool, but I felt as though I got my business to where it was running fairly independent of me. I was able to take some nice vacations. I got some nice leadership team in place. They all had the direction where the company was going. They all had their KPIs and their critical numbers. So I felt as though I needed some type of challenge to myself. So I started to get into doing half Ironman races, and yeah, I mean, I probably did 100, 150 altogether. But yeah, the pinnacle ones are the Ironman races, where my first was in Arizona, 2009, and they did it just in roughly about 11 hours. But I think what allowed me to do that, because it involves 20 plus hours a week of training, was having my business in such a well-run, oiled machine that allowed me that time to take off doing the training.
You think a lot of people feel like they're just stuck in their business, and then they see somebody that maybe works on their business rather than working in their business and just doesn't understand how that happens? Like, take us through the process of how you are able to get outside of your business and actually work on it and not get stuck on the day-to-day activities that really that someone else could be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I remember distinctly, I had a mind change myself where, I think in some ways ego was a big part of my life, where I enjoyed being that person everybody would come to. There'd be that revolving door. I'd love to solve the problems. And then I thought, well, I'm actually doing myself a disservice, because I get home at the end of the end of the night, and I'm exhausted. And I'm also enabling all the leaders who work for me. So try to change that mindset, where when they came into the room asking for a solution, I would turn around and say, hey, what would you do in that scenario? You've been with this company now for 5 years. You've seen a lot out there. How would you solve it? So eventually it got to a point where they were solving their own issues. And yeah, there was some tweaking here and there, but it really changed them to become more confident in their role. And again, that freed up my time to be able to work on the business. So I see that all the time when I go into coaching big organizations, where the owner, the founder is so still involved in weights in the business. And my goal is to try and get them to delegate more things to their team and allow them to be able to carve out some reflective time, so they can then work on their business and strategize where they're taking the company to the next level.
I really feel like there's great advice in there. I like where you're talking about the way that you react when somebody comes in with a problem, because that's what happens a lot. I think owners and entrepreneurs get stuck when somebody comes in and they're still solving all the problems. Like, they pay somebody to lead a team and really to do a job, and then next thing you know, on in a early morning or a phone call at night, here comes the problem, and you're thinking, man, I paid somebody to be able to take care of this, and here I am solving it again. But you're right. Like, it's not as simple as that. You really have to train them to be able to think like that, because I think a lot of times the entrepreneurs think different than an employee. That's why you're an owner and they're an employee. So I think sometimes you have to train them on how to think. And I like that when you said you give it back to them and say, well, how would you solve it? And it takes practice, right? It's not like the first time that happens, the light bulb goes off and they're able, they probably come back to you 3, 4, 5, 15 times, but eventually something happens, right?
Yeah, it probably took me at least 2 or 3 months to really work on them and give them that confidence. But it was a huge game changer for me and my business. And it, to take that stage further, a lot of people are really challenged now with rising wages, rising salaries, and I feel as though you should do the best job possible by hiring people that are better than you in your business. So again, they should have, with that skill set and the fact that you're hiring better people, they should be able to own those problems. So yeah, it was huge for my business.
What about when you talk about wages? What did you see when you started to hire maybe the first few employees that you knew that you really paid a lot for? I'm sure there was a point in your business where you never expected to pay somebody on your team the amount of money that you started to pay them. Like, you started to pay them really good wages, like pretty much like money. If you're like, man, if I could have made that, I probably would have never started my own business. When you get through that mind gap of I can't pay somebody, and then you realize that that it is worth paying them. And sometimes you do get what you pay for, so you almost overpay, but what they bring to your company is such a influx of new ideas and new thoughts and new perspective. Can you talk about what it was like the first time that you brought in an employee that was an A level and you paid them that way?
Yeah, I mean, I almost felt in some ways a little bit of a grudge, because I thought maybe I, should have been paid that, but I quickly got over that once I started to see what they could produce for me. And then I started to put more responsibilities onto them, and they start to produce more. So I thought, well, that's now freeing me up to do the things I'm passionate about. So it was almost like a game changer for my business, where it freed me up to do more things I was happy to do and produce more revenue at a higher level. But to be able to see that person, be paid a little bit more, and I had to get through my mindset shift, but to then see them flourish in that role and give them more responsibility and test them, I think that was really encouraging to me, just to see them, develop.
Robert, where can people get more of you if they want to get more of you? What's the easiest way to find you?
Yeah, two ways is through my LinkedIn, Robert Clinkenbeard on LinkedIn, and then through my website, they can get hold of my book there, see my coaching programs. But the Radix Group LLC.com is my website, and some great information on there, great resources. I have my podcast link on there. So yeah, there's the two main places.
And what's the name of your podcast?
The Commercial Landscaper podcast.
And what about the name of your book?
The Ironman Mindset for Entrepreneurs. And
all right.
Talks about everything related to business and sports.
Great. Now it's time we get to solve the equation to your success. Are you ready for 7 rapid fire questions?
Sure.
Okay, great. Best seminar or teaching you've ever been to?
I would say the MIT program through EO was tremendous.
Favorite item you've recently bought under $100?
Good question. I would say my back roller while I'm traveling.
Name an idol or hero of yours that you've met in person.
Richard Branson.
Favorite book to give as a gift?
Extreme Ownership.
Something you do every morning when you wake up?
Exercise.
Your personal mantra or favorite quote?
Only good things happen on the other side of fear.
Place you go to decompress and reset?
Somewhere quiet, peaceful, and meditate for 10, 15 minutes.
Robert, thank you so much for being a guest on the Business Equation. We appreciated the conversation. I'm sure our listeners are going to get a great deal of wisdom out of it, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you very much, Nick. Appreciate it.